Hey everybody, thanks for joining me here today. This is Nicole with Topaz, and today we are here for the introduction to Topaz Detail. With Topaz Detail, you are going to find the most advanced detail control technology available. It features unique detail size separation technology. So I'm excited to show you what detail is all about here today. And again, this is the introduction to detail. So we're going to go through a pretty thorough explanation of the interface, all of the tools with the interface, the slider definitions, and how each slider is affecting the image. So it's going to be kind of a step-by-step intro into everything, and then talking a little bit more about some technology and how to kind of view the detail that's being separated in your image. So today I am using Photoshop CS6, but we are compatible with many versions of Photoshop, Photoshop Elements, Lightroom, Aperture, Photo Effects Lab, of course, and other programs as well. You can check that out on our compatibility page. But through Photoshop and Photoshop Elements, you would access Topaz Detail by going to Filter, Topaz Labs, and then Topaz Detail. We have a new guide here to help you get started if you're unfamiliar with detail, but I'm going to go ahead and skip that. But that's a great intro if you want to get a little bit of a refresher of Topaz Detail. So there are four main interface areas to Topaz Detail. Over here on the left-hand side, you have your presets panel. In the middle, we have our preview window, our main preview window, where you can toggle back and forth between your original and the affected image. Over on the top right, we have our preview navigator where you can select exactly where you want to view your preview, and then below that we have our 5 modules that will allow you to manually adjust the image using the different settings and parameters in there. So let's start over here on the left-hand side in the presets panel. We have a ton of different presets here available for you that are broken down into different collections based upon what type of detail they are. So we have a creative detail collection, which will just creatively affect your detail, and you can just click on it and you'll see that detail manipulation happen over on the right-hand side. So if I want overall detail strong, I can click on the overall detail strong and it's applied to my image. Let's go ahead and look at this image at 100% during this session so we really see what's going on with the detail. Over here on the left-hand side again, below the Creative Detail Collection, we have our Highlight Detail Collection. The Highlight Detail Collection is going to affect any of the lighter areas within your image. For this, what we're looking at right now, most of this is going to be light, but let's just take a look at that. Highlight Detail Strong. Here's before and after. You can tell in this little shadow area right in between the V of this leaf where there actually is shadow detail happening there. It's not being affected by these adjustments, and I'll show you where we can do that manually on the right hand side here in just a bit. But these highlight detail and shadow detail collections allow you to specifically change just those areas, which is really important in some workflows. So if I go to my shadow detail collection and just do the shadow detail strong, you'll see that here's before and after. It's only affecting this little portion that of the shadow region of my image. Again, before and after. Then we have our smooth collection, which some people might say, wait a minute, this is Topaz Detail. Well, we do have the ability not only add detail and make it pop out more, but we also have the ability to soften our detail and remove certain detail. So you can get things like skin smoothing to get nice, soft edges of your detail. So you lose some of that enhancement. You're just going the opposite direction. So that can be really beneficial in certain imagery. And then we have our stylized detail collection, which will not only enhance the actual details in your image, but also starts to incorporate the tone adjustments, the color adjustments, and other adjustments that we have available to you in the program, and it kind of gives you a full stylized effect. So you can get things like architectural detail, which is going to be mostly just a detail enhancement with a little bit of color and tone, all the way to something like desaturated blush, which is going to not only give you a lot of detail enhancement, but completely change the way the overall creative style of the image feels. So that's your preset panel. Within this new Topaz 3.2, because this is a minor upgrade, the interface and workflow tool upgrade. So we did have 3.1. This is going to be 3.2. Within 3.2, we're introducing some of the tools that we're slowly introducing to the rest of our products as well. That includes some of my favorite tools, which can be found over here on the left-hand side in our preset panel. The one that I think most people really enjoy and find the most use for is this grid panel. So if you click on this little grid icon, it's to the right of the word presets. You just click on that. It will pull up all of the different preset previews and display it into a grid view, which allows for you to see all of the different types of presets in that particular collection all at once. And you can just scroll down and check them all out. And if you start seeing something that you like or is standing out to you, you can start to kind of zero in on the look that you're after. So let's say I like the summer landscape. Down here in the middle on the lower row, I can just click on this little camera, and that's going to it's going to indicate that I want to keep this as a snapshot preview for this session. So as I continue looking at some other ones, maybe I'll look at that blue sky, just choosing the little camera. We'll look at that desaturated blush again. I like the fall landscape, maybe the cloud detail. So you can indicate which ones you like, and then once you find, or once you have selected all the ones that you kind of want to take a second look at, you can come up to this search area, drop down, and look at your snapshots. And it's going to pull up all the ones that you've indicated you want to take a second look at. And so now we're only looking at those, and we can kind of zero in on the effect that we're after. So you can also take a look at all the different collections within Detail from this particular view as well, and you can also search by keyword if you are interested. So let's say I want to search for all the cloud type details. I can just type in the word cloud, and you'll see that cloud or sky presets will start to show up here in the search area. If you want to go back to the main interface, you can just go to this back arrow, and you can find the same sort of searchability within this actual view as well. So if you come to the right of the word presets, I can actually go to my snapshots, and all the ones that I've indicated in that other grid view that I want to take a second look at, they're right here for me now to take a look at in a larger preview setting. So now I can just scroll through those and say, okay, I actually really like the summer landscape, so that's the one I'm going to go with. I can select it, and it's applied to my main preview. Here's before and after. I can also start to indicate which ones, or select certain favorite presets that I tend to use a lot. You can just click on the star to the left of each preset, and you'll see that it turns blue. That means it's now in my favorites folder. So if I go to my favorites folder, you'll see that particular preset pulled up. So a lot of new interface, or I'm sorry, a lot of new preset tools for you to use. We still have the capability down here on the lower left to be able to save, delete, export, and import your presets. So if you have a user-made preset or your own particular preset that you really like, you can save that and apply to a batch of images, or be able to always go back to it as well. And then you can export and import to share your presets. You can also take these snapshots that we took within the grid view down here in this main view mode by choosing, or by clicking on this little camera icon at the bottom right. So that is, oh, the last thing I want to show you here over here on this left-hand side is going to be the collections menu options as well. Here you're able to add a new collection, delete your user-made collection, or rename your user-made collection. So instead of adding to one of the collections here, let's say I want to save a preset to a new collection, maybe call that My Collection, where I can save all of my user-made presets. I can say OK. The collection is added to my collection list. Then I can come down, save this preset as mine in my collection, press OK, and there it appears for me to use in the future. So that is the presets panel. To the lower left of the presets panel, we have our menu button where you'll find a lot of things to kind of set user preferences and places where you can get more information for Topaz Detail. So in your preferences, let's go to that first. You have the ability to turn off or on your interactive sliders, your tooltips, which are little explanations, descriptions of what each slider does. Once you get used to the program, sometimes those are kind of annoying, so you can turn those off here. You can also turn off your auto updater or turn it on here. You can enter, this is where you will enter your key, check for updates. This is where you can access your user's guide. You can access that initial startup guide again if you want to check out those slides. So lots of different options within your menu area. In your main preview window, we've been already looking at that. It's just where you can see that main adjustments taking place. If you want to toggle back and forth between your original and your preview, you can just press your space bar, which I've been doing here. You can also press your left mouse button, or you can come up to this lower or this upper left button called original and go back and forth between the original and processed buttons. So you can look at this in several different ways. To the left of the original button, you'll see these little arrows. You see them on both sides of your main preview box here. And that's going to allow you to get rid of these tool panels, the preset panel as well as this right-hand side panel as well. So you can increase the size of this main preview area and allow you to see your full image. Once you're in this full image, even when you're not, you have the ability to change the background and still your zoom as well. So if I wanted to see my image on a black background, I could easily do this while still in the same session and see how it might look on different background tones. Then I can open up my side panels again if I'd like and change my view again. And there we are, we're back. If I want to change what I'm looking at in my main preview window, I come over here to the top right to my preview navigator. In the preview navigator, you can see a little blue box here that is showing you exactly what you're looking at in your main preview window. You can move that box around to pan your image. And then you can also check out the loop view. This is going to be new for one of our interface tools or workflow tools for you. Let's say you actually want to take a look at this at a smaller overall view like your fit mode, but you want to make sure that certain areas are giving you the right detail that you're trying to add. So you can just click on somewhere on the image and you'll start to see in a 100% view exactly where you're clicking over here on the top right, and that is what you're seeing in your loop view. All right, so below that we have all of our different modules available for you, and this is where you can come in and actually manually adjust your own effect. So let's talk about that. I'm going to go back to my navigation or my preview navigator here and go back to 100%. And we'll start off in the detail mode. This is going to be the main technology behind the program and really what sets it apart from all of the other plugins that we have. When you first open up Topaz Detail, let me go ahead and go through that process so you actually see the little pop-up window. It's a pre-processing pop-up that says Topaz Detail is pre-processing your image. And you see it right here. It's analyzing the image. And what Detail is doing behind the scenes is breaking your image down into small, medium, and large image details. And then it's going to allow you to adjust the small, medium, and large image details in 3 different regions: your overall, your shadows, and your highlights. So it breaks it down into so many different categories and really allows for you to have precise, exact detail manipulation in a very simple way. Over here in the actual detail module is where you'll control the different detail sizes. So you'll see these detail size sliders: small details, medium details, and large details. And this is going to allow you to independently change the strength or of each of these detail sizes. It's going to allow you to either get stronger details by going to the right or weaker details in that particular size if you go to the left. Now your small details are going to adjust the very fine texture-like details in your image. Let's go back to 100% so you really see it well on your screen. So again, your small details will adjust those fine texture-like details, very small. You have to be a little bit careful with these small details because they'll take even the slightest bit of image noise or grunginess that you might have in smooth areas and treat that like small image details. However, you can quickly tell the program, wait a minute, I don't want that size of detail to be considered a small detail by coming down into your small details boost. Your boost sliders are going to be attached to each size slider. So below the size detail slider, you'll see the size detail boost slider. The boost sliders basically give you this additional flexibility to tell the program which details it should be manipulating. As you move it to the right, it's going to increase the amount of details that should be considered small detail. And as you move that small details boost slider to the left, it's going to decrease the amount of details that are considered small details. So if I take my small details up way high, and I get this really heavy small detail manipulation on my leaf itself, but I'm getting this really grungy detail enhancement within the background that I don't like. I can actually just take my small details boost to the left, and it's going to take the very smallest details and start to not manipulate those, and so you can see it smoothed out in that background, but I still have some very nice small detail manipulation. Here's before and here's after, and we'll go over that a little bit more, but that's basically what's happening with our small details. The medium details is going to adjust, basically you can think about it as the medium features in your image. It's not the large structure areas of your image, but it's going to be between that kind of texture and structure sizes. So your medium details are here. And then your large details are going to be more structure, boost. You'll see a lot of shadow and highlights being brought out, but you do not see any sort of real manipulation of the texture or medium-sized details. So you can independently change all of these details to get different kind of creative enhancements as well as sharpening enhancements. And again, not only can you do that within the overall, but you can also do that within your shadow detail specifically. So if I click into my shadow area here, if you notice right here in the V of my leaf area, I can then come in and just adjust my shadow details. It's only going to affect those shadow details. Here's before and after. Same thing with the highlight. If I only want to get some nice medium detail boost there, here's before and after. All right, so that is our detail module. Please know that each one of these modules within detail is something that kind of sets detail apart. We have these presets in here for you. So if you just want to go in and say, okay, I want some nice overall detail strong, I'm just going to click on that, and it will set your settings or all the sliders to that overall detail strong preset. So if I just want shadow detail light, I can come in here and I can see that it has moved all of my shadow details around or detail sliders around. So these presets are really nice to work with as well. I'm going to press reset all here below. The next module that we have is our tone module. And the tone module gives you pretty precise control over your image exposure, brightness, contrast, and it gives you some very unique control over changing the brightness of specific color ranges within your image. So the exposure and contrasts are going to be pretty basic exposure contrast adjustments. You can move that to the right to make your exposure lighter, darker, increase your contrast to the right or decrease your contrast to the left. Your highlights are going to be protected as you take them to the right, or I'm sorry, are going to be boosted lightened as you take them to the right. If you take them to the left, they're going to get darker. Same idea with the shadows. As you take the shadows slider to the right, it will open up that shadow region, and as you take it to the left, it will take it closer to black. With the whites and blacks, you have the same idea. As you take it to the right, it's going to go closer to white. As you take it to the left, it's going to get darker. Same with the blacks. And then we come down to those unique brightness tones that I was just talking about. We have cyan red, magenta green, and yellow blue. Basically, if you take your slider and move it in one direction or the other, it's going to increase the luminosity of either your cyan or red slider, and it's going to decrease the luminosity of the other one. So with the cyan red slider, for example, if you take this to the right, your reds are going to brighten up. They're not necessarily going to change the undertone of the actual color itself, but the brightness and luminosity will change. So you can see that red will get lighter, but at the same time with the red getting lighter, your cyan is getting darker. So if I go to the left, cyan is getting lighter, red is getting darker. Same thing with the magenta green. If I go to the right, the green will get lighter, magenta will get darker. If I go to the left, green will get darker, magenta will get lighter. Blue and yellow, if I go to the right, it's going to make my blues brighter, my yellows darker. As I go to the left, my yellow's brighter, my blue's darker. So you have some really unique capabilities there just to give your image kind of a final once over with the tone. I find that it can really give you some very cool looks as you're working with your image with these tone sliders. Within the tone module, you'll also have the ability to add grain, and it's just going to be a monochromatic type of grain that gets added into your image. So you can add that by just going to the right with your grain slider. Below that module, we have our color module, and that's going to adjust your overall saturation and your temperature and tint of your image. So with your temperature slider, as you go to the right, it'll get warmer. As you go to the left, it will get cooler. With our tint, as you go to the right, it will give you more of a magenta tint, and as you go to the left, it's going to give you more green. With the saturation sliders and the saturation boost, this is kind of carried over from some of our other programs as well. Saturation is going to increase or decrease the overall saturation of your image. And then saturation boost is basically going to try to even out the saturation. And the way that it does that is it takes the lesser saturated colors and tries to boost them up to match those more saturated colors. So as I take my saturation boost up, you'll notice that it's not affecting, for example, if you'll keep an eye on this really bright fluorescent green over here on the top left, it's not affecting that because that's already quite saturated. But the background and areas that feel a little bit washed out start to boost up their saturation to try to match the strength of the already high saturated areas. So that saturation boost is more just a balancing out of your saturation. So you can actually just work with one or the other. If I just work with my saturation boost, I can match it without taking my overall saturation up. So some pretty cool color adjustments available for you there. And deblur is going to allow you to reduce your image blur, but less in a way of just enhancing the details like the detail module allows you to do. Deblur actually uses a different technology to actually reduce the image blur, giving you a more crisp and sharp image. Know that if you want to use the deblur module, you have to preview your images at least 50%. It won't work otherwise. And the reason is because if you're not looking at it at a higher percentage, most likely you'll overuse it and it will sharpen up your image too much. When you then process it back to Photoshop and look at it as 50 or 100%, it'll look really sharp. So you want to make sure that you're looking at it in the right view within detail as well. So you can just click that on. We're at 100% right now. Let's go to an area that has quite a bit of detail, like here on this red leaf on the bottom. And then you can take your blur size up. And it's going to increase the sharpness of the finest details available. So here's before and after. It's very hard to see on this. I'm hoping that you can see that a little bit. Let me maybe increase it just a touch so you can see at least the size of detail that it's working with. Here's before and after. It just crisps everything up, the very finest detail available in your image, even smaller than the small detail. You can kind of think of it like that. The last thing that we have here on the right-hand side is our effect mask. The effect mask allows you to selectively add or subtract the adjustments that you've made to your image. For example, let's go ahead and add a really high detailed image here. Let's go to our stylized detail. Let's instead do a really heavy detail through our creative detail collection and do an overall detail strong. So here's before, here's after, and that's pretty strong here. So let's go to 50% so we can look at the whole image. Let's say I really like what it's doing to the leaves, but I really dislike what's happening to the background over here. If you'll notice in the background, let's go a little bit heavier so we see that. It's kind of giving me a grunginess to a very nice smooth background, soft background that I really enjoy. So here's before and here's after. So if I want the detail enhancement on all of the rest of my image but not in the background, I could do one of two things. I could come into my detail slider and I could really try to work with those boost sliders and tell the program, okay, or try to figure out what the best setting is so the program will still manipulate my small details but not the very smallest details, and I can sit there and play with that slider for a bit, or I can quickly come into my effect mask area and just paint it out of that particular region. So it's basically just a masking module here for you. When you open it up, it's going to be a white background by default, which says that you can view all of the adjustments that you've made. And if you want to paint something out, you just keep your strength at 0, which is going to be black. You keep your, you can change your brush size to whatever brush size you'd like. You can change your hardness. I'll take that to about 0.5. Flow, I'll leave it 1. Edge aware, I'm also going to leave it 1. Edge aware is really the magic of this particular brush and what makes this effect mask really nice to use within the program. We have this edge aware technology that allows for the brush to just affect the colors that the crosshairs of the brush are actually on. So as long as you keep the very center of the brush on the color you want to affect, it's not going to affect the rest of the colors. So you can have a big brush and have it go over the edges of these leaves like we were doing right now, but it's not going to affect the leaf itself because the crosshairs of my brush are in the background area. All right, so over here in the actual effect mask, you can see what I've done with this black brush very quickly. Now here's before and after. Now I'm affecting the image with my detail, but it's not affecting the background. I'm affecting the subject, but not the background. Here's before and after. So I'm keeping that really nice soft background. So you can paint again in or out or mask in or out the effect that you're working with. If you'd rather paint it in, you can quickly do that. Let me reset it back to white and invert. And now we start off with a black mask versus a white mask. And if I want to, let's just paint it into this front leaf and that's it, I can change my strength to white, or I'll put it maybe at about 75% there. That'll work. Keep it edge aware. Keep the rest of the settings basically the same. I'll take my brush size up just a touch. And now I can paint it in. And the same concept applies as long as I keep that crosshairs of my brush, the very middle of my brush, on the color I want to affect. It's not going to affect anything else within the image. So I can quickly just paint it into the areas I want to add detail. Here's before and after, and leave it out of the areas where I don't. This is a really smart way to drive the viewer's attention to your subject and really make it stand out and pop without doing too much of a heavy manipulation or additional work. The overall opacity, that's at the below of the, that's at the very bottom of the effect mask module. That's just going to allow you to overall change the opacity of the, or translucency of the effect. So after you're all done, if you say, you know what, it still feels a little strong, you can take this overall opacity and go to the left. And it's going to start to blend in the original image until it's just the original image at 0. And then you can bring that effect back in as well. So that overall opacity is a great tool to know about as well. Down at the bottom of the parameters here, we have a few other workflow tools here for you. We have our undo and redo buttons. We also have our apply button. This is fantastic if you're trying to apply, let's say, first your creative detail enhancements, and then you want to also apply your output sharpening all within the same session. This apply button allows you to apply your settings that you're looking at within your preview, and then you can continue working and apply a whole other set of adjustments to another area of your image or your overall image altogether. So the apply button is great to know about. The only thing you need to know about the apply button, though, is that once you press it, it has stuck. It burned into your image. So you cannot undo an apply. You can only undo up to the last apply that you did. So once you press apply, if you have to start over at that point, you do have to exit the program and come back in. So that's important to know about before you press that apply button. Make sure you definitely want to apply those adjustments. The other thing that we have is a reset all button to allow for you to just reset everything back to the default values. So I can just press reset and everything is back to the original image. To the left of the apply button, you see this little tag button. And if you click that, it's going to basically just be a random setting button where it will take every single one of these sliders that you have within the image and just randomly move it around. And it's something that within some of our programs we call the I Feel Lucky button. I like to think of it just as an inspiration button because a lot of the times you don't even think about how this program can apply to your image, and with this randomizer, you start to see all these kind of crazy effects, and it can start to inspire you to go a certain direction that you might not have gone otherwise with your image. Because we have so many sliders, it does tend to give pretty strong looks. So this is much more of a creative tool, I find, than if you're just trying to apply more technical detail enhancements. We press reset all, and then we have our last two buttons, cancel and OK. If you don't want to apply any of the adjustments to your image, you can press cancel and get out, or you can press OK, and that's going to process your image back into your host program and apply the effects. So I hope that gives you a nice introduction, very thorough introduction into all the different tools that we have available. As you can see, Detail gives you this really amazing control over all different sizes of your image detail and really gives you the power to get the exact look that you're after. We tend to use detail within a couple areas in our workflow. Within the sharpening workflow, we have the 3 categories of capture sharpening, content sharpening, and output sharpening, and we usually tell people to use detail for their content sharpening, which is going to be more the creative effect of your detail, as well as the output sharpening, because the small detail slider can be amazing just for output sharpening after you've resized your image and you're sharpening for your output, whatever your output may be. So I'm going to press cancel and I'm going to go into a different image. Let's go into maybe, go into this image here. I'll go into this background, make a background copy, and we'll get right back into detail. Because what I want to show you, because even though I haven't looked at the questions yet, I know the most popular question is how to determine all these different size details, which is the most important thing in the program. So how do you know what the small details are affecting, or the medium details, or the large details? It used to be an easy answer before Topaz Detail 3 came out. Within Topaz Detail 2 and before, it was an actual pixel size of image feature. It is not that simple anymore within Topaz Detail 3. The algorithms did change to actually reflect the image that you're bringing in versus making it very exact, and it doesn't apply to all your images equally. We wanted to kind of examine the image and then take that particular image that you brought in and work with the small, medium, and large details. But sometimes it is hard to explain, in that case, what exact size each detail is. So if you are one of those people, which I am, that like to know exactly what it's affecting, I like this one little trick that we can do within Detail. I'll show it to you really quickly, just to give you an idea of what it's affecting. Let me press reset all just to make sure. And the little trick is, if you take your small details, your medium details, and your large details all the way to the left at 0, you're taking away all of the image details that Topaz Detail is going to be affecting for you. If you take away the boost, it really doesn't matter at this point because you've taken away the details themselves. So if you want to see what the small details are within this particular image, you can take that small details up, and you'll see that only the small details start to come out in the image. And if you want to see what the small details boost does, you can actually move that boost now and see that when you move it to the left, it's taking out a certain amount of those small details. And then as you move it to the right, it's going to look at the image and actually take in more small details. So this just small details boost, it increases or decreases the range of detail that's considered small. Same thing can be applied to the medium details and medium detail boost. But that's kind of a fun way to just kind of check out and see what detail is doing in the background. So here are the medium details. You can see that it's no longer those very small texture details. It's more the medium-sized features in your image that aren't the full structure details or the texture details. So if you want to change your medium details boost, you can also do that with the boost. And lastly, we have our large details. As you take that to the right, you'll see it's definitely more of the details that have higher transitions of highlight and or contrast. It really brings out those edges, and you can, again, change your details boost as well to affect more large details or less large details. So I hope that kind of gives you a quick explanation of how to break down the detail, or how detail breaks down the different size image details. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Again, I hope this gave you a thorough introduction into Topaz Detail, so you know exactly how the program works and how to best apply very controlled detail manipulations to your image. If you have any questions, again, just let us know, and we're happy to get back to you. Thanks, everybody. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.